It was a chilly Saturday evening when my son, Ryan, suggested we do something different for a change. "How about a movie night, Mom?" he asked, his voice filled with excitement. His suggestion came at a time when I desperately needed a distraction. Life had been a blur of work and solitude since my recent breakup, and I hadn't realized how much I craved a simple, warm moment with him. Ryan had always been my anchor. At 17, he carried himself with a maturity that often surprised me. He saw through my smiles, the ones I wore to mask the emptiness that had crept into my days. His insistence on going to the theater wasn't just about the movie. It was his way of trying to make me feel better. We arrived at the small, cozy theater downtown, its vintage charm making me smile for the first time in days. The scent of popcorn wafted through the air, mingling with the soft hum of chatter from the audience. Ryan led the way, finding seats in the middle row, ensuring we had the perfect view of the screen. As the lights dimmed and the previews began, I felt a rare sense of peace wash over me. The mundane worries of life seemed to fade into the background, replaced by the comforting presence of my son and the allure of a good story on the screen. But just as I was settling in, I noticed something unusual. Ryan was fidgeting. His eyes darted around the room, not with the casual curiosity of someone waiting for a movie to start, but with a sense of unease. I followed his gaze, scanning the audience, trying to figure out what had caught his attention. That's when I saw her, Amanda, my best friend of over a decade. She was sitting a few rows ahead, her laughter ringing out softly in the dimly lit theater. But it wasn't her presence that shocked me. It was who she was with. The man beside her was young. Too young. He couldn't have been more than 25. His arm casually draped over Amanda's shoulders. They were close, intimate, sharing whispered words and stolen glances that left no room for doubt about their relationship. I blinked, trying to process what I was seeing. Amanda, who had always been a pillar of wisdom and guidance in my life, was here with someone who looked like he could be her son. My mind raced with questions. Why hadn't she mentioned this? Was this why she had been so distant lately? I turned to Ryan, my voice low and steady. "Did you know about this?" His face flushed and he looked down at his hands. I didn't think it was my place to say anything," he admitted. "I thought she'd tell you eventually." A knot tightened in my chest. This wasn't just about Amanda's secret. It was about the layers of betrayal, her silence, my son's complicity, and the feeling that I had been left out of a part of their lives I thought I knew so well. I sat frozen in my seat, unable to focus on the movie unfolding on the screen. My mind raced, filled with a whirlwind of questions and emotions. Amanda had always been like a sister to me, someone I could confide in without hesitation. To see her here so clearly enraptured with this young man felt like a betrayal I hadn't seen coming. I turned back to Ryan, who was visibly uncomfortable. Shifting in his seat, "Ryan, how long have you known about this?" As trying to keep my voice steady. He hesitated before answering, his eyes avoiding mine. "A few weeks." He admitted quietly, "I didn't know how to tell you. I thought she'd want to do it herself." The weight of his words hit me hard. So Amanda had been hiding this from me for weeks. The woman who had comforted me during my breakup, who had always been the voice of reason in my life, had chosen to keep this secret. And my son, my own son, had known and said nothing. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, the hurt evident in my voice. Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Because I didn't want to hurt you, Mom. I thought maybe she was just figuring things out, and it wasn't my place to interfere." His words stung, but I couldn't entirely blame him. Ryan was only trying to protect me in his own way. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that clung to me. Like a shadow, I couldn't stop myself from glancing at Amanda again. She looked happy, almost carefree as she leaned closer to the man beside her. It was a side of her I hadn't seen in years. But instead of feeling joy for her, I felt anger bubbling beneath the surface. How could she keep this from me? Didn't our friendship mean more than this? I sat through the rest of the movie in silence, my mind barely registering the plot. When the credits finally rolled, I turned to Ryan. "I need to talk to her," I said firmly. He nodded, his expression a mix of guilt and concern. As the audience began to disperse, I made my way toward Amanda. She spotted me and her expression shifted from joy to surprise. Then to something I couldn't quite read. "Oh, hi," she said, her voice too cheerful. As if she were trying to mask her discomfort. I didn't waste any time. "Why didn't you tell me, Amanda? Why did I have to find out like this?" My voice was calm, but the hurt was evident. Her smile faltered, and she glanced at the young man beside her before looking back at me. "I was going to tell you," she said quietly. "I just didn't know how that's not good enough." I replied, my voice trembling. "We've been friends for years. You've always told me everything. Why keep this a secret?" She hesitated, then sighed because I was afraid of what you think. "He's younger, and I know it's unconventional." I didn't want to feel judged, especially not by you. Her words hung in the air, and for a moment I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to understand, but another part couldn't ignore the hurt I felt. Amanda, my closest friend, had kept something so significant from me, and it wasn't something I could easily overlook. I stood there staring at Amanda, waiting for her to say something that would make sense. Something that would justify the betrayal I felt in every corner of my heart. Instead, she just looked at me, guilt evident in her eyes. While the young man beside her shifted uncomfortably unconventional, I repeated, my voice sharper than I intended. "Amanda, this isn't about his age. It's about trust. You've been my best friend for years. Do you know how it feels to find out like this in a theater? Surrounded by strangers instead of hearing it from you." She sighed deeply and rubbed her temples, as though my words were making her head pound. "I know I should have told you," she said. "I was scared." "Okay, you've been through so much lately, and I didn't want to add to your stress." Just snap. "Do you think keeping secrets from me makes things better? All this does is make me feel like I don't even know you anymore." Ryan stood a few feet away, watching the exchange with a pained expression. I knew this situation wasn't easy for him either, but at that moment I couldn't focus on anything but the heavy silence that followed my words. Finally, Amanda looked up, her voice soft but steady. "I didn't want you to judge me, and I didn't want to lose our friendship." I felt alive again for the first time in years. He makes me happy, and I didn't know how to share that without risking everything we have. Her confession stopped me in my tracks. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, the vulnerability she rarely let anyone see. It was a side of her I hadn't expected, and for a brief moment my anger wavered. But the hurt was still there, sharp and unyielding. "Was I really someone you thought would judge you?" Ask, my voice softer now. "All I ever wanted was for you to be happy, Amanda. But you didn't trust me enough to share this part of your life with me. That's what hurts the most." The young man, her boyfriend, I realized finally spoke up. His voice hesitant, I told her she should talk to you. He said, glancing at Amanda. "I didn't want to come between you two." His words added another layer to my confusion. He seemed kind, thoughtful even. But that didn't erase the ache in my chest. "This isn't about you," I said to him, trying to keep my voice calm. "It's about trust. And right now that feels shattered. Amanda reached out as if to touch my arm. But I stepped back. I need time to process this. I said, I'm not saying I won't try to understand, but you have to give me space. Her face fell, but she nodded. I'm sorry, she whispered. Without another word, I turned and walked away. Ryan quickly falling into step beside me. He didn't say anything, and I was grateful for his silence. My heart felt heavy, weighed down by the complicated emotions swirling inside me. All I wanted now was time to think, to sort through the mess this night had turned into. The car ride home was quiet, the air between Ryan and me heavy with unspoken words. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, my mind replaying everything that had just happened. I glanced at Ryan briefly, his face turned toward the window, avoiding eye contact. Are you okay? He asked softly, breaking the silence. I sighed, unsure of how to answer. I don't know, I admitted. I just feel disappointed. I thought I knew Amanda better than anyone, and now it feels like I don't know her at all. Ryan shifted in his seat, his voice hesitant. I think she was scared, Mom. Scared of losing you. She's not perfect, but maybe she just didn't know how to handle it. His words lingered, and I realized how much they mirrored my own thoughts. Amanda wasn't a bad person. She was someone who made a mistake, someone who let fear dictate her choices. It didn't erase the hurt, but it made me wonder if I could find a way to forgive her. When we got home, I went straight to my room, needing solitude to sort through my emotions. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the photo of Amanda and me on my nightstand. It was taken years ago during a trip to the beach. We were laughing, arms slung around each other. The picture of an unbreakable bond. Tears welled up in my eyes as I thought about how much had changed since that day. Our friendship had weathered so many storms, but now it felt fragile, like a thread stretched too thin. The next morning, I woke up with a clearer mind. I knew I couldn't let this fester. Amanda had hurt me, but she was also someone I loved deeply. If our friendship meant anything, I had to find a way to move forward. I picked up my phone and typed out a message. Asterisk Amanda. I'm still upset, but I don't want to lose you. Can we talk? Asterisk. Her reply came almost instantly. Asterisk. I'm so sorry, and I'd love to talk. Just let me know when. Asterisk. Later that day, we met at a small cafe we used to frequent. Amanda looked nervous, her hands fidgeting with her coffee cup. I could see the remorse in her eyes, and it softened some of the anger I've been holding on to. I've been thinking a lot about what happened. I began, and I want to understand, but you have to be honest with me, Amanda. No more hiding. She nodded, her voice trembling as she spoke. I didn't handle this the right way. I was selfish, and I let my fear get in the way of our friendship. I know I hurt you, and I'm so sorry. Her apology was genuine, and it was what I needed to hear. We spent hours talking, unraveling the miscommunication and fear that had led to this moment. It wasn't easy, and the hurt didn't disappear overnight. But it was a start. As I drove home, I realized that trust could be rebuilt, even from the most broken pieces. And while our friendship would never be the same, it could still be something worth fighting for.